Hello again, everybody. Welcome to Below the 38. This is episode 56. It's our K-League 1 preview show. I'm Andrew, and that's Luke. K-League 1 had a midweek set of fixtures, which doesn't always work out well for us because we're not able to get a proper preview in, and we don't often have time then to get the review in before the weekend fixtures that are coming up. But of course, there were some interesting results, and we really have to touch on them. The headlines before we go through each result one by one. Anyang come from behind to beat Incheon. Seoul pick up another win. Pohang have beaten Jeju away. Ulsan have lost 3 in a row. Gwangju find the most interesting ways to not win matches. And there's a 0-0 in Gimcheon. So there are the headlines. Now, what about the contact details?
Right, yeah. So please remember we are at Below the 38th on Instagram and on Twitter. We are at Below the 38th on YouTube as well. Our website is belowthe38thcareer.com. And as of today, you'll find even more interviews, news, and write-ups on our website and social media pages. So let's have a look at these results from midweek. I'll start with Tuesday. On Tuesday, it was Seoul 1, Bucheon 0. It was a very close game, but again, Seoul managing to win even when they perhaps struggled to do so. Gimcheon, draw specialists, get another 0-0 against Jeonbuk. Very frustrating for Jeonbuk. Delightful for Gimcheon, I'm sure. And Jeju 1, Pohang 2. That was Jeju's first defeat since May in the league. And Pohang have gone from being terrible to finding a way to win. And they're doing it away from home. How about on Wednesday?
Yeah, Wednesday, Daejeon have continued their upward trajectory. They're within touching distance now of a final A spot, and there's plenty of time for them to achieve that. They beat Ulsan 2-1. Ulsan are just losing games everywhere now. This is why the championship race is over, because not only are Seoul 15 points clear and not losing matches, but nobody else, absolutely nobody else, is putting together a run of form. So it's just done. And now we're just waiting basically for it, because Ulsan are clearly not going to win the K-League 1 championship this season. Gwangju threw away a 2-0 lead in Gangwon late bottle job, I'm afraid we have to call it as it is. Gangwon rescued a point. Again, their season in terms of a very, very slight title race is now well and truly over. And I was in Anyang with Mike, so we got an interview. It's on our website. There's another interview with Anyang goalkeeper Kim Da-sol. That'll be appearing on the website in the next few days or so. I was there for it. I spoke to about 6 of the players in the mix zone. Only one of them in terms of like an interview, but like at this point, I know a few of them, so they're coming by and they greet, and you greet them with, "Well, hey, that was better." But I mean, it was just genuine relief everywhere. Like, I don't think it matters to anybody how they play. They needed 3 points. They got 3 points. And I thought, like, media, coaching, players, absolutely nobody wanted to talk about the 7-0 hammering they shipped at home to FC Seoul at the weekend. There was a smile. Everybody looked happy, but that is a heal. That's a wound that's not going to heal for a very, very long time. And I can understand why they didn't even want to. You know, there's kind of something bad happens. You're like, well, maybe in a while we can all laugh about it. I don't think they're ever going to be laughing about the day they lost 7-0 to FC Seoul at home. So all that means that with the championship nearing its conclusion, and it's probably reached its conclusion in terms of 1st and 12th, FC Seoul are 15 points clear of Jeonbuk, who didn't even manage to win themselves. And at the bottom, Gwangju are 15 points adrift of Gimcheon Sangmu. Luke said they drew again, because that's all they ever do. They draw so many matches, but Gwangju just cannot pick up a win to close the gap. So K-League 1 is finished in terms of 1st and 12th, but that gap between Jeonbuk on 38 points and Gimcheon at 27, those two sides played against each other. The game that ended 0-0, and it feels like that is it's beginning to squeeze a bit now between 2 and 11, whereas everything else is done.
Yep. And it's very interesting that Wednesday was a night where everybody seemed to come from behind to win. Incheon were winning and then lost 2-1. Ulsan were winning and lost to Daejeon. And it's who else? Gwangju were 2-0 up, and it was two very quick goals from Gangwon. That, I mean, it wasn't a defeat, but it must have felt like a defeat after being 2-0 up and after going so long. They've not won since the second round of the season against, I don't remember who that was against, but they've won one game this season, and they're just not able to.
Oh, it was Incheon. Yeah.
Made up for it last week. But yeah, so it's midweek games, eh?
And it's just also like listening to what some of the fans are thinking. Like the Pohang game was a disaster when they were drawing that going into the last, like the 96th odd minute. They could have won it and they ended up losing it from like the same phase of play basically. Incheon score with their only shot on target in the 93rd, 94th odd minute, and then 2-0 up to throw that away is wild. I mean, they, given where they were, I know there's obviously issues in terms of bans and stuff that they've had to deal with, and they've lost so many players and they've lost a manager. But to go from third in Asian Champions League quarterfinals to FA Cup semi-finals, FA Cup final, they finished 7th last season. Like the demise or the collapse of Gwangju has been just breathtaking to watch.
Yeah, I mean the collapse has been so swift that you worry that the way Korean football goes, in 2 or 3 years, will they even be a team at this stage? Like if they go down into K-League 2, will the powers that be pull the plug at some stage? Which hopefully not, because teams like Gwangju, cities like Gwangju need a football club, although arguably it's much more of a baseball city. But you'd know more about that than me. So, shall we have a look at this weekend? Round 26 in K-League 1. We have matches split between Saturday and Sunday. On Saturday there are 2 games. I'll start with the first one, which is Bucheon in 10th versus Anyang in 7th. Very much another derby for Anyang. They're third in 2 weeks. They've played Seoul, they've played Incheon, and now they're playing Bucheon. Bucheon suffered their first defeat in 5 games against Seoul last night, but they've got a good record going into this game. They've given a good account of themselves against Seoul. Anyang bounced back in midweek against Incheon, but that 7-0 defeat is probably still fresh in their minds. It's a derby. It should be a close one. A win for Bucheon will see them move close to Daejeon. A win for Anyang, and they'll be in the final A spots. It should be a good game. Lots on the line, lots to play for. So far this year, Bucheon have won 1-0. Anyang have won 3-2. Both were away wins. So this game's at Bucheon. So money on Anyang, perhaps.
Yeah, and obviously Anyang's away form is so much better. I know you and Mike were talking about this in the document we have for these podcasts. I don't think we ended up talking about it in the weekend there was. The weekend there was, and just playing each team 3 times a season. This is, I think 2 times is enough. Obviously, like they played each other home and away, and now they got to play each other for the 3rd time. I think it takes something away from these matches. It'd be so much nicer and so much cleaner if it was just home and away. Because I remember we were previewing this because the last time they played each other was also in Bucheon when Anyang raced into a big lead and then struggled to keep it going. But they don't like each other. These clubs, the sets of fans really don't like each other, and it makes it that little bit more interesting. Obviously, until this season, they'd spent their entire relationship or the rivalry against each other in K-League 2, and now they're in K-League 1, and both sides are obviously going to survive for another season. They'll be at each other's throats again next year. It's a fun little rivalry, this one, but I just think that 2 games is enough. We don't need to have a 3rd installment of Bucheon against Anyang.
Yeah, I mean, it could be worse. I remember a few years back when the Hyundai teams were playing each other at 6 or 7 times a year because of Asian Champions League and Cup and League and Split and everything else. And it's like that turned from being a spectacle to being just a non-entity because it was just a stalemate. Similar happened in the Premier League when it was Man City and Chelsea, or Arsenal and Chelsea, or Liverpool and Man U playing each other too often in the Cups and in Champions League and in the League as well. It's overkill and it's not special. We'll see what happens next year. It would be nice if we could go back to just playing home and away, but everybody needs to have a split, don't they? So we'll see.
I forgot about the split. That means it's going to be a 4th game. unless Anyang can finish in the top half. Okay, let's leave that for another day. A fourth installment of some of these matches is definitely overkill. Ulsan host Incheon also on Saturday night. The results so far this season have been slightly in Ulsan's favour. They drew one game 0-0 and Ulsan won 2-1 at Incheon when Incheon just were unable to pick up any points at home in the earlier part of the season. This is third against 11th. Ulsan are third despite having lost 3 in a row. Incheon are 11th. Incheon have actually lost 6 matches this season to Ulsan's 10. Like, there's a big difference there. 6 losses to 10 losses, and yet Incheon are the team that are second from bottom, and Ulsan are currently third. I was having a look at trying to figure out the math a little bit here. Incheon have 4 wins all season and 15 draws. If those two numbers were flipped and it was 15 wins and 4 draws, they'd only be 4 points off FC Seoul in top spot. So it's just those draws are so damaging. It's not a case of, I'll just pick up a few points here or there and move you up the table. Clearly in this stage, because there's been so many draws, that it's just hampered any possibility or opportunity that Incheon have had to move up the table. It's a game that also, given that it's third against 11, shouldn't really have much riding on it. If you're third, you should be close to first, and if you're 11th, you should be battling relegation. But Incheon are actually much closer to Ulsan in third than they are to Gwangju, one position below them. There's only 10 points separating these two sides. It'd be very, very interesting for that final A, that last couple of spots of final A, if Incheon are able to pick up their first win of the season against Ulsan in Munsu.
Now, moving on to Sunday, we have Gwangju, obviously bottom of the league by quite a long way, and Seoul in first. So Gwangju are 15 points adrift, Seoul are 15 points ahead of second place. Now, 15 points is the magic number because the split consists of 5 games. So if you go into the split 15 points or more in advance of your nearest rivals, you will be champions. And I think that's what Seoul are thinking of now. We've got about 7 games left to the splits. If they can keep 15 points gap between their second place, third place chasers, then they will have the title wrapped up by the time we get to the split. That's definitely something that they'll be aiming for at this stage, I think. Now, Seoul have won these 2 meetings this season. No surprises there. They won 1-0 away from home in Gwangju, and then they won 5-0 at home at Seoul World Cup Stadium. This game is down in Gwangju, but you can bet that it will still be a Seoul win. Seoul, they didn't have their best performance against Bucheon in midweek, but it was one of those where, they managed to grind the results out where other people fail. And I think that's definitely what's going to be happening for the rest of the season. They'll keep picking up points when everybody else is dropping them. I can see quite a big score coming out of this game. But yeah, maybe not a 5-0, but we'll go 3-0, I think.
This was also the fixture, wasn't it, when I think Gwangju were unbeaten in their first 4 matches, and then everybody expected them to struggle because of the transfer embargo and losing all the players and losing the manager. And then they started the season pretty well. And then they went to Seoul and lost 5-0. And then it just kind of kick-started that incredible run where they just seemed to concede 3, 4, and in some cases 5 goals over like a 6 or 7 match period. Yes, this is... I'm going to talk a little bit about this a little bit later on. So I think it's an intriguing game to look forward to in terms of the rest of the weekend's results that are coming up. But yeah, I expect anything other than... Seoul won't care. They'll just take a 1-0 win after 2 minutes, but I'd imagine this would be hefty enough.
Yeah, looking at the fixtures, it was Gwangju's 5th game of the season. It was their first defeat, and they had been doing quite well. They got 3 draws and then the win over Incheon. And they were sitting comfortably in final A spots, and they just got absolutely pummeled. And then the following week, they lost 3-0 in Gangwon, and it's just been downhill since. So we'll see what happens this weekend. Also,
on Sunday, a game I was half thinking of going to because I've still never been to Gangneung before, but I can't justify a Sunday night game and then back to work on Monday. It's Gangwon in 4th against Pohang Steelers in 6th. Pohang are now on this long run of away matches they have to play as security checks continue. Safety checks, I beg your pardon, continue at the Pohang Steel Yard. there are 2 points separating these two sides in the table, but both sides don't really have any form to speak of. They both lost 3 out of the last 5. Pohang at least have picked up a couple of wins, whereas Gangwon have picked up just 1. That spell just after the World Cup really ended whatever momentum Gangwon had, including a very heavy defeat at home to Bucheon FC. And Pohang, who actually started the second half of the season really well after the World Cup, then just fell to pieces after that. And it not only did it bring to an end their outside chances of winning K-League 1, but they were drifting dangerously close to the lower half of the table, shall we say. But it's still... a game has a lot riding on it. Like, second spot is absolutely open for this season, and both these sides will feel like they got a good chance of finishing in that spot. Pohang had picked up 4 points from a possible 6 so far against Gangwon, a 1-0 win at home and a 1-1 draw in Gangneung earlier on this season. So that's Gangwon against Pohang.
Now we come on to an interesting game as well, which is Jeju versus Daejeon. For so long, Jeju have been the form team, but in recent weeks, Daejeon have turned things around. They're now top of the form table. They've got 4 wins from 5, but they're still 9th in the table, which shows how bad their start to this season has been. 4 wins from 5, and they are within touching distance of the top half of the table. And I think that will be a minimum requirement this year for Daejeon, given the money that they've spent and given the team that they have, and following on from quite a successful year last year. Now, Jeju suffered their first defeat, I think it's about 14 games on Tuesday, but they're still doing really well. They've looked comfortable to be in 5th. They've picked up a lot of good points recently. And so far this season, it's been 0-0 in Jeju and 1-0 to Jeju in Daejeon. So the historic data goes with Jeju for this game, but Daejeon are doing really well. I can see them winning, and if they do, they could be up to 7th or 8th by the end of play.
Final game. It's rare that I get to preview an Incheon match. I think it's because I lost midweek that Lucas kind of washed his hands with the previews for now. What is the title of that derby did you guys have with Bucheon again? Is it 0-3-2?
The 0-3-2 derby, yeah.
Well, there's something in the 0-3-2 derby that has spooked Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors for the season, because they failed to beat Bucheon in any of their matches so far this season, and they've also been beaten twice so far by Incheon United, 1-0 in Seoul and 2-1 earlier on this year down in Jeonju Castle. Looking at the form guide, like, both of these two sides, this is the classic K-League 1 form at the moment if you're not FC Seoul. Jeonbuk, a draw, 2 losses, a win and a draw. Incheon, 3 straight draws, a win and a loss. That's 6 points from the last 5 matches. Jeonbuk have picked up 5 points from their last 5 matches. This is how it is for all of the teams in K-League 1, really, is that apart from FC Seoul, and you could argue Gwangju as well. Jeonbuk are actually up to 2nd despite dropping more points midweek against Gimcheon. Incheon were unlucky. I mean, I was at that game. It was a game that, especially when they brought on their changes in the second half, when the game was still tied at 1-1, it felt like this was a match that was going to sway in their favour. At least the first 20 minutes of that, they were camped inside the Anyang half, but they were undone by a piece of magic from Matheus Oliveira in the end, and it's just a disappointing result. But they are in 8th. They're still very much in the conversation to finish inside the top half of the table. If they do pick up a win for the 3rd time this season against Jeonbuk, I'd be delighted to know, and you'll be there to tell us, what will the reaction be from the away fans, because they do not hide their displeasure when results don't go Jeonbuk's way.
It'll be interesting because they're going to bring a lot of fans as well. They tend to sell out the away end. I mean, all credit to them, they do travel very well, and they have done pretty much since I've been watching K-League. They've always brought large numbers. I mean, back in the early days of me going to K-League games, Seoul would bring 1,000 or 1,500 away fans, but Jeonbuk would always bring as many as they could. I think it's often about 2,000 away fans. I mean, obviously now Seoul sell out all of their away allocations, but they didn't used to. It was always Jeonbuk that brought the big crowds, and Suwon Blue Wings as well, to be fair. But yeah, no, if Incheon can get a win again this weekend, or even if we can get a draw, you've got to imagine that Jeonbuk will be expecting to win and will be hoping to win against Incheon. And yeah, I'd like to see the reaction of the fans if Incheon can get anything from the game. I think as well it's going to be an important game for Incheon because we do look to be trending downwards at the minute. Like, performances haven't been great, even if we've been picking up points, even if we've been drawing. It's not like performances have been very good. I think summer has been very tough on a lot of our players. We don't have a lot of squad depth. We play the same 11, maybe with one change, like for the majority of the games, and we're running out of steam. And I don't really know what the answer is because we're spending a lot of money. The squad's one of the most expensive, I believe, one of the top 6 most expensive in K-League 1, but a lot of that money is concentrated in individual players rather than having squad depth. So we'll see. It'd be nice to see Leandro get a start. Now he's signed, maybe they're just waiting until he's fully match fixed. I don't know if he's been playing in recent months. But he's looked okay when he's come off the bench. Hopefully he can get up to speed and he can be an important player for us. Mogosa, no idea why he's not starting. I do think he should be one of the first names on the team sheet, but the manager has different ideas. And that continues to baffle me and the majority of the fans. But yeah, that's for another day, I guess. Yeah, so where are you going this weekend? Are you going anywhere?
I'm probably not, just because of a lot of different factors. Domestic, and also the fixture list as well doesn't really play into my hands too much. I'll probably end up scaling down this weekend. I've been to kind of a lot of games recently as well. I mean, the game I'd like to go to is obviously in K-League 2, but Gimpo is an awful place to get to from anywhere other than in the greater Gimpo area. But also there's more midweekers coming up in September. I think just before the international break. So I might just take a break from K-League 1, possibly in K-League 2 until then. Looking forward to that Gwangju Seoul game, not because I expect it to be competitive in any way, shape or form, but like, this is the battle, as we know, between last and first. There are 41 points separating the two sides, and that can happen in a league, but there's only 12 teams in the league and they've only played 25 matches. So like, I was doing a little bit of research on this today, and apparently, like, I mean, you could probably figure this out anyway, but a gap this large would normally only occur if a team has been hit with penalties of some sort, off pitch stuff in terms of financial regulations, or going to administration, or a penalty of some sort. So to be 41 points behind the leaders after 25 matches and 15 points behind 11th spot on just purely sporting basis, on the basis of 90 minutes over 25 games. Like we said earlier on, like, it represents one of the most dramatic collapses from a team in not just, I think, Korea, but you probably have to scout around a lot of the other leagues in Asia to find a team that has fallen away quite as hard as Gwangju have. They're averaging just 0.48 points per game, and apparently in a standard kind of 33 to 38 match season, in most top flights around the world, any pace below 0.5 points per game is considered a historically disastrous campaign, and they are on the cusp of that at the moment. So yeah, just as given that in Gwangju or Anyang Stadium given in Seoul Stadium last year, it wasn't that long ago, there was snow on the ground, but Gwangju were playing in the FA Cup final and they took Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors to extra time. Least we forget that's how good they were. That's how good they have been for the last number of seasons. Yeah. So the fall off is like you were saying, the worry is what could happen to football in the city if they get relegated, and what happens then after that. But this is just tragic stuff. I mean, like we were mentioning before, throwing away 2-goal leads with time running out is really bad. It's really, really bad. Imagine this was the game where they won for the second time this season, though. How awesome would that be?
You'd love it. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those as well where this year is the worst year to be relegated, because next year there's a lot of uncertainty over how many playoff places there'll be, how many teams will be promoted, because obviously this year K-League One's been expanded to 14 teams. And so next year, what will the promotion and relegation situation be? It's not been decided yet. It could be back to one team up and one playoff, or one team up and two playoff positions. In which case, if you are Gwangju and you've got teams down there who have been down for a while and make a run for it, there's no guarantee that Gwangju will even be in the conversation for promotion. This year you've got Blue Wings, you've got Eland, you've got one of, I would say, Daegu, Suwon FC, and possibly either Busan or Hwasong, like competing for these final places from now. Two of those teams could miss out based on playoffs. And then they're still going to be in K-League 2 next year, and teams will come back, teams will have better seasons, and Gwangju are going to have a lot of rebuilding to do at the end of the season. And do they have the money for it? Do they have the appetite for it? And do they have the management for it? We'll be seeing.
But then conversely as well, this is a great season to have your worst season of all time, because there's no automatic relegation.
True.
And they could just do nothing between now and the last weekend of November, get Busan in the playoffs, eke out a draw in Gudok, and then just beat them 1-0 at home. Like it's incredible. If you're having a season as bad as this, I know you can't just change the rules 25 matches in because they're 15 points adrift, but there's no way a team in this situation, where in a league with relegation and promotion, there's no way you should be. They're not guaranteed their safety, but they have that safety net of relegation and promotion decider, and they're obviously going to be in that. There's no way they cannot be in that relegation promotion decider at this point. Like you were saying, there's only 7 games to go until the split, and then 5 games after that. 12 or so games to make up 15 points are obviously not going to do it. Mathematically it's possible, realistically it's impossible, but they might not go down. They could just get Seoul are having a bad day, Suwon FC, guy gets sent off after 10 minutes, you win 2-0 away from home, it's all over. And then despite this season, this historically bad season, they could end up staying in K-League 1 next year.
They could, but I just don't see them winning. I mean, I don't know. I see them going to, I mean, we saw it last year with Blue Wings, just capitulating. Blue Wings had a really good season. They'd run Incheon fairly close. And then they just weren't able to get over the line. And you can see Gwangju putting in a similar performance. And like Bucheon as well, Bucheon played Suwon FC, and just out of nowhere they scored a load of goals unexpectedly. And Gwangju are conceding goals. Gwangju concede goals for fun. And if they're playing against Suwon FC are going to score 5.
Yeah, probably.
I mean,
probably.
Suwon scored for fun. Daegu scored for fun. Yeah. So I think it could be one of those two teams, either Suwon FC or Daegu. I think Eland and Blue Wings will go up automatically, and then it'll be one of those two teams. And you don't want to be Gwangju in that playoff when you've only won 1 game all season. Imagine if they do get to the playoff and they've still only won 1 game. Although again, the second game that they win all season is the one that keeps them in the division. Hardly fair. But yeah, we'll see. Not long to go now until we find out. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. Enjoy your football wherever you go this weekend. Remember, we're at Below the 38th on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. BelowThe38thCareer.com. Like, share, and subscribe. It really helps us. Check out the interviews that are on site now. Danny Backer from Anyang talking about his move to Korea, and lots of other stuff. Enjoy yourselves. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you soon.